Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast, This Week in America. Samantha Raven is a single mother with a 15-year-old daughter, Elizabeth. She's a forensic accountant who is determined to protect her from all that is horrible with the world and is relatively successful until Trevor Patterson comes into her life. From this point on, it became a wild ride, one she could barely hold on to until the truth came out. It wasn't until she confronted her demon she did finally find peace and happiness. That's the storyline of Catching Raven, Volume 1 by CB Tucker. CB has been to approximately 132 countries, lived in 10. He says he had situations from all over the world that begged to be placed into a book. A rudimentary knowledge of French and Spanish. He used to speak Thai. A Vietnam veteran, was also in Iraq, where he backpacked for 10 months from the Saudi border all the way to Kirkuk. He's seen the horrors of war, the strains of peace. He's witnessed heroism and cowardice. CB has spent the last 6 years working for diplomatic security, now retired. CB Tucker, author of Catching Raven, Volume 1, our guest on This Week in America. CB, welcome to the program. It's great to have you with us.
Great. I'm glad to be here. I really am.
Well, what an amazing life you've had and an excellent job in writing this book, receiving rave reviews. We're talking about Catching Raven, Volume 1, CB Tucker, our guest on the program. CB, what was the inspiration for this book? Where did the story idea come from?
It developed. I was in Dakar, Senegal for 2 years, and my second wife came with me, but she had to be medevaced out, which meant I was left alone in Dakar. And if you've ever been to Dakar, West Africa, it's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful state and country. And some of the most beautiful women I've seen in my life were there. I mean, you walk around Dakar, it's like a city full of Halle Berrys.
Wow.
And so I decided that the best way that I could behave myself was to stay home and write. So I started writing this book, so to give me something to do and to take up my time. And it's the story that I started. I had no idea what I was going to write. I just wrote. And then I changed the story about 5 times until finally the story that we see today is what came out of it.
That's interesting how you went about that. So often you'll see a writer that will have this strict outline, go back and stay to that outline. You sort of let the story unfold as it did in your mind. Our guest on the program is CB Tucker, talking about his book, Catching Raven, Volume 1. Tell us something about the book. I know in your writing, you like to do something that's unique. You don't like to follow what someone else has done. What are some of the unique aspects that you brought to writing Catching Raven?
Well, I mean, I read a lot of books. In fact, I do almost a book a week, and I love to read. And I took lessons from some of the great writers. One of my favorite is David Balducci, and watched what they were doing. And so when I was thinking about the book, and I would try and write to a scene. I know there's going to be a scene down the road, and you always kind of write to prepare for that scene. And so I write to what's going to occur in that scene, and I build up on it until you get to that scene, and then we take it on from there. It was more of, and then some of the stuff that I put in it was stuff that I had seen and was aware of.
Yes.
In diplomatic security, we're very sensitive to human trafficking. Everywhere I went, there was courses on, okay, these are the situations with human trafficking here, regardless of where I was. And some of the things, when I described how Elizabeth was kidnapped, when I described how Samantha Raven was blackmailed, these are actually real situations that has happened to people. It's in a storyline. It is fiction, but these are things that have happened to people, and they get into it. So I mean, it's that type of situation.
Yes, it's interesting. So these are just not things in your imagination that you thought, what if? These are things that you actually witnessed, heard about, you actually saw. So this is sort of like real life unfolding before our eyes as we read your book.
Yeah, well, most people wouldn't see that stuff. I mean, it's like one of the stipulations I've seen today is where people would refer to a woman, well, she's just a whore, or she's just a whore, so what difference does it make? I raised 3 daughters, and never from my daughters or any of their friends, I hear one say, "Oh, I want to grow up to be a whore."
Yes. Yes.
That's, they end up in that for various reasons. There's a number of reasons for a woman to get into that profession. And that's also true. So, and that's one of the things, in fact, I put that in the book. I said, Trevor Passon says, I know no little girl wants to grow up to be a whore. None of them espouse, I want to grow up and be this. No, that's not what they want to be. They want to be a lot of things. That's not one of them. And so I want people to be sensitive to that. We need to be sensitive to what we do to our fellow man, our fellow women.
Interesting to keep in mind as you're reading the book, Catching Raven, Volume 1 by CB Tucker. Now, this is a republished book now available for sale at its lowest retail price, available for sale in all Amazon sites, Barnes & Noble, Page Turner's Bookstore, Chapters Indigo in Canada, Waterstones in the UK, Booktopia in Australia and New Zealand, and a lot more. Sale in a number of different formats, and we'll give you that throughout the program. And you can link on to one of the sites by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Once you sit down, you start writing the book. What were some of the challenges you faced as you were writing Catching Raven?
Well, I like strong women, but I don't like fictitious women. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Where I've seen movies where this girl comes up and she just swings this bat and everyone's flying all over the place. That's not true. Women are the weaker sex, but that does not mean they have to be weak. A lot of times their strength comes in different manners in different areas. There are two women in this book that actually take on two men and they destroy them. They really do. But these women have been practiced for years in martial arts and how to fight. They're tough women. They're beautiful, but they're tough. And most guys look at a woman like that, they don't realize how tough a woman can actually be. So I try and write everything I write. I try and write from the aspect: is this real? Can a woman really do this? No, she's not picking up 200 pounds, but can she really do this?
Yes.
So, and that's where I try and write to. So if any girl, any woman reads the book, I want them to understand that this is possible. I'm not writing this. It's fiction only in story, that the characters and the places and don't really occur, but what they're doing is real. I've known women and seen women. I know women today that you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alley.
Yes. Exactly. We talk about some of the challenges in writing this book. How about some of the highlights, the other side of that, the highlights, the things you're really proud of about Catching Raven?
Well, what I discovered when writing the book was that I suddenly realized the joy of creating the story. And that was one of the real highlights. I found that thinking about the story, trying to develop a storyline, the dialogue, and this type of thing, that became a major portion to me. And I have to admit that I do like the storyline. I do like the story, so I'm obviously prejudiced right from the start. But as I was writing this, and I brought the other books that I've written, I try and stay true to par. What I'm describing, they're doing is real. And I had to go back and do a lot of research to make sure that everything was plausible, that this can actually happen. This can actually be done. And that was my joy, finding out, okay, yeah, this is true. This can happen.
I think you touched on this, but I think it's worth going back because it's an entertaining story. It's really well done, but there's some key themes, some messages that you want to get across. What do you hope readers take away after finishing Catching Raven? Well,
there's one scene in the book where Trevor comes over to Samantha's house. She doesn't know who he is yet. And he starts mowing the grass. And it's like a sudden realization in her mind that, this is how it's supposed to be. We as men, we are suppliers of the resources. We go out, our key in life is we go out, we work, we develop, we build, and we supply those resources to our women so they can make the home. And this is not a degradation to either side in either way. Being a wife and a mother is probably the greatest job a woman could ever have, in my opinion. Can she be a CEO? Yes, of course. But being a wife and a mother and running the house and looking after her family, that's the most important thing a woman can do to society, because the core of society goes back to the family. That's the beginning. And when you destroy the family, you destroy the society.
With us on This Week in America is CB Tucker. He's author of the book Catching Raven, Volume 1. You'll find information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Boy, time going by quickly. There's so much to talk about in this book. What was the hardest scene for you to write? You've talked about some pretty gruesome situations that you depict in the book. What was the hardest for you to write?
The scene where Elizabeth, after she was kidnapped and she comes to in Jimmy Diddle's office, and what the four men did to this 15-year-old girl. This actually happens. This, not with every girl, but this actually takes place. And I had to write it about 4 times because I didn't want to get too explanative with it. But I wanted to get the message across. This is what was happening. And also the scene where Samantha is blackmailed into having sex with Roger Dawson. She's doing that to protect her daughter. Everything is to protect her daughter. And women find themselves in this situation. It's never planned. It's not what they want to do. And those were hard scenes for me to write. I have 3 daughters, and I've always respected, and I prefer strong women. And to abuse a woman like that, it goes against my core belief. I cannot abuse a woman. I'm just not capable of doing it. But I had to write those into the story because they become a major part in their lives. Yes. Later on anyway.
I can tell the emotional toll it took, and it's interesting because as readers, we will go through those emotions as we're reading. Obviously, as a writer, this is just not a job to you. This takes its emotional toll for you writing the story, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I could feel when I'm writing it. I'm feeling the pain. I'm putting myself into the story, and I'm feeling the pain. Now, when I first write it, it's a quick write. I'm flying through it. I'm trying to get everything down. And very few people can understand it but me. Which is why I have to go back and edit it 2 or 3 times to get it. Whoa, what was I saying? So, but yeah, because I really feel it. The period when later on when things that happened to her when in Volume 2 and also in Elizabeth Raven in her book, when she suddenly finds out that Matthew is going away. That's actually another book, which you won't see it in this book. But, the loss that she feels. And then her mother comes in and talks to her. Because in this book, Samantha Raven, she falls for this guy. She tries to resist him as long as she can. And she ends up getting pregnant. She at the end of the year of the school year, she goes home and then she suddenly finds out she's pregnant. And then she can't find him. And now she's a single mother, and this loss that she has in her life because she really liked this guy. And it really is the job of the woman to pick the man who's going to father her child. She's the one that says yes or no.
Yes.
And if she picks wisely, she gets a good man, a man that's going to stick with her and be there with her and through it all and stick by her side because, my first wife had 3 kids, and going through all that with her and everything, you really appreciate what a woman goes through being pregnant and giving birth. In my mind, nothing a man will ever do in his life will equal what a woman does in 9 months in developing a child in her belly and giving birth to it.
Yes.
If you just think about the the fact that, all right, she's created this thing that's going to start from 8 pounds and grow to 200 pounds and learn language and mathematics and build things and do stuff.
Yes.
Nothing man can do will ever equal.
It's awesome when you think about that, and it takes your breath away, honestly, when you really give it deliberate thought. Boy, time is going by so quickly. CB Tucker, our guest, his book is Catching Raven, Volume 1, that we're talking about that. Talk about the significance of the title and how you go about titling your books, not just this one, but the other books you've talked about as well.
Well, I went over and over in this book trying to figure out what to call it. And of course, Samantha Raven, her last name is Raven, and he wants to catch her. In other words, it's man's job to find the right woman and to win her favor. My oldest daughter was upset when I told her that she is a trophy. And what women, and I told this to them, and I'm very adamant about this, women are the trophy. Your wife is the trophy. Because what you had to do to win her favor, to win her over, to win her love, look, men learn how to dress, they learn how to act, we learn how to eat with utensils, just so women will be willing to be around us. Men are pigs. Ben Shapiro was actually correct when he says men are pigs. It's women's job to make us better. And they do.
Yes.
And men need women to make them better. And so, we work and strive for our women. So what Trevor Patterson was doing, he has to win her back. And she's not, and to win her, she's a beautiful woman. She's intelligent. She is a woman of character. She's a trifecta in that way. So to win her favor, she's a trophy that you spent, a year or so trying to earn. And we need to think of our women that way. Women shouldn't let that go to their heads, but to a man, the woman in his arm is his trophy. Because when a man walks into a ballroom or something with a beautiful woman on his arm, that's a trophy. That means that's him saying that I was man enough to win this woman's favor.
Lucky enough, possibly, to win that woman's favor. And I think in my situation, well, but yes, that's exactly true. Who exactly? About 2 minutes left here. Who's the target audience? Who do you hope to reach with the book? And I'm thinking for some, this would be an inspiration for them. Would actually be more than just an entertaining read. It may make an impact on their life as well.
Well, anyone who enjoys reading fiction, who likes to read about a strong woman, in a sense, it's a Cinderella story. She is the downtrodden maiden with a child and everything, and this rich man comes along and saves her in a sense. But she's also a study in like the book of Job from the Bible. Job was steadfast in his loyalty and belief in God, and as a test, the devil took everything away and left him on as a pauper with sores and everything. But because he stayed fast to his beliefs and what he knew was right and what he believed in, God gave him twice as much back. And in a sense, that's what's happening to Samantha Raven here. She believes Elizabeth was a gift from Tip and God. And so she's going to protect this child, raise this child in a manner that she believes Tip would want her to. She's going to protect this child and do everything she can for this child with what meager resources she has. And even when she's challenged, she doesn't let those go. And so in the end, she gets Trevor, who's a billionaire. So in a sense, she was rewarded for her steadfast in her belief.
Yes.
And what she believed in tenfold. So, and I didn't realize those were the storylines when I started this book. But after I read it, and I wrote it, and then read it, and then thought about it, it suddenly hit me like, yeah, it's kind of like the Cinderella meets the Book of Job.
Exactly, and that's Catching Raven Volume 1. Take a second here. You mentioned the other books. How do we get information on the other books that you've written?
Well, currently, Volume 2 is up on Amazon right now, too. And that's the second half of Volume 1. Volume 1 goes up, and I'm just going to drop this a little bit. She Trevor finds it necessary to get Samantha and Elizabeth out of the country. He's a billionaire, and so he puts them on his private jet and flies them to Paris. And when she leaves, not knowing where she was going, the only clothes that she had on that belonged to her were her shoes. She's wearing his shirt and his underclothes. Now, I'll let you read the book to find out why. But she leaves this country, and that's all. And it's kind of embarrassing for her and everything else. And then volume 2 takes it from there and goes the rest of the way.
Well, you have my attention. This is Catching Raven, Volume 1 by CB Tucker, a republished book now available for sale at its lowest retail price in a number of formats, available at all Amazon sites, at Barnes & Noble, Page Turner's bookstore, Chapters Indigo in Canada, Waterstones in the UK, Booktopia in Australia and New Zealand, and a lot more, basically wherever books are sold. And I know, CB, you worked with Page Turner Press and Media on this project. What's that experience been like for you?
Well, I've been working with Robert, and he's a really good guy to work with. He's a salesman first, of course. But yeah, he's been very receptive to me. I mean, when I ask him for questions or something that I need from him, he usually gets right back to me and gives it to me. And he's been, great assistance in getting all this done. I mean, he got me with you and that type of thing. So it's, I've really appreciated it.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be with us on the program to talk about this powerful book, so well done, Catching Raven, Volume 1. Our guest on the program is CB Tucker. CB, hopefully we can do this again. Thank you so much for being with us on the program, sharing the story, the background on the story. It's been a pleasure to have you with us.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Once again, our guest, CB Tucker, Catching Raven, Volume 1. Information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back on today's program after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.